The police have arrested 13 suspects in connection with the killing of traditional rulers and the abduction of school students and teachers in Ekiti State. The Assistant Inspector General of Police in charge of Ekiti, Dari Ogundari, said it took the combined efforts of security agencies in the state to apprehend the suspects. According to the AIG, they were rescued at the Otikon forest between Ekiti and Owo in Ondo State at about 1 a.m. Sunday. Ogundari also said that one suspect, Alhaji Abubagan, had confessed to the crime while efforts were on to apprehend his accomplice.
During interrogation, Baboga Alhaji admitted he took part in the assassination of the two traditional rulers. He is currently giving credible information that could lead to the arrest of other gang members. SB recovered from the suspects are 1 live cow, 3 cutlasses, 1 axe, 1 dagger, including food items. We want to enjoin the good people of Ekiti State that the command will not rest on its oars until these perpetrators of this heinous and criminal act are brought to justice. We employ all of them to remain calm as we carry on further investigation.
The kidnapped school children of Apostolic Faith Group of Schools in Ekiti, Ekiti State, and their teachers have been released from captivity. It was gathered that the victims regained their freedom in the wee hours of Sunday. In a short video clip and photograph, the freed Pupils and their teachers sat on the floor looking tired as a mother lamented the condition of her child in the background. The abductors had demanded 100 million naira ransom for the release of the kidnapped victims, but it was not immediately clear if the ransom was eventually paid or not. A government official at Ekiti confirmed the release of the victims. Gunmen had on Monday ambushed the school bus conveying the pupils and some staff members of the school to their houses. About 10 occupants of the bus, 5 school children, 3 teachers and the driver were abducted and whisked away. Dr. Bat, your take on this story. Good news here.
Okay, well, first, the former Commissioner of Police, Ekiti State, now the Assistant Inspector General of Police in charge of that zone, Dari Ogundari, had reported that, yes, a suspect had been arrested who claimed he was one of the 5 persons who ambushed the 3 traditional rulers on January 29 in the Kole Ekiti area of Ekiti State, killing 2 of them, and then one of them, the Alara of Ara, Kole Ekiti, Oba Fatoba, Adebayo Fatoba, who survived, escaped, along with his driver. He also said that other suspects have been arrested, and also that school pupils and their teachers who were also abducted in that axis had been freed by a combination of the police, Amotekun, OPC, other security agencies, and with the support of the Ekiti State government. Ogundare went further to say that no ransom was paid. Well, on the surface of it, yes, you say it's good news, because after all, school pupils, look at these innocent people, pupils who have not offended anybody, who had to be abducted along with their teachers for no reason other than that they happen to have found themselves in Nigeria, in a state, in a country where government continues to fail in securing the lives and property and providing welfare for the people. That is what the story is all about. And it's not just about these young persons and their teachers, it's also about the traditional rulers who were attacked. Again, we're painfully reminded with the situation in Ekiti State, the incident on January 29, and also the abduction of the pupils, of the security crisis that Nigeria faces. Last week, we spent the whole of last week, everybody spent the whole of last week talking about insecurity in Nigeria. The Senate said it was summoning service chiefs. We were told Security Council meeting will be convened. But the question that the people of Nigeria continue to ask is, to what effect? Where is the impact? Where is the difference? Why is it that every other measure has failed? Where is the renewed hope that the APC and President Tinubu personally, in terms of national security, promised the people of Nigeria? So those original questions remain. Whether it's in Ekiti, or the Plateau, or Zamfara, or any other part of Nigeria where life has become short, nasty, and meaningless. Nasty, short, and brutish, to quote the author of that phrase as he put it. That's number one. There are other details in this narrative. The first one is the spiritual side of it. Some commentators, historians, I think I saw Tayo Adesina, who is a professor of history at the University of Ibadan now. I also saw Chief Elebuibon, Chief Ifayemi Elebuibon, saying that it is so strange that traditional rulers who are regarded as next to the traditional gods, next to the Orishas, and who are supposed to be revered persons in traditional communities, have now found themselves in a situation whereby, they are victims of attacks, of gunshots, of ambush by kidnappers. And I think both the historians and the Ifa priest were putting it down to the fact that the traditional institution has undergone a very dangerous transition, whereby, traditional rulers are no longer as mystically powerful or as revered as they used to be in times past. Well, my only problem with that, I'm not into, shamanism and the interpretations thereby, whether it's of one variety or the other. I don't think we should blame the dead for whatever may have happened. Two traditional rulers lost their lives. This is not about whether somebody went to Ekiti for preparation or as a traditional ruler is supposed to have powers to disappear or not. That's mysticism. The real fact that we have is that nobody is safe, whether a blue blood, a royal person, or an ordinary person. And this is why in this narrative we have, at one end, traditional rulers, monarchs, being affected, and we also have ordinary people, ordinary pupils, children, their teachers, also being affected in this security crisis that we face in Nigeria. That's that about that. Those who are looking for traditional explanations can go in that direction. But government has a responsibility to make this environment safe for both princes, kings, and, everyone else, and plebeians. Now, beyond all of this, we've been told that, there's going to be arrests. One Dede, I think his name is Babajoga Alaji, as they otherwise called him, said, he's going to help help police apprehend the other suspects. Well, when those suspects are apprehended, they should be made to face the full wrath of the law. And beyond all of this is the unresolved question about protecting lives and property. Those children who have been freed should be assisted, a lot of counseling. Their parents will also require counseling. Their teachers will also require a lot of counseling. And those still pushing the traditional narrative, Oba Fatoba has said on Awikonko television that he did not escape. He was the only one that survived. It wasn't due to any mystical powers. He took to his heels in literal terms. And he and the other traditional rulers had in fact gone to Ikole to make arrangements for security in that axis, resort to self-help. Government had failed them. Yes, he said they have the support of the Ekiti state government. But to get to a point where traditional rulers themselves are the ones now recruiting security men to provide security within their domains. And when they were attacked by these assailants, the security men that engaged were so scared that when they tried to respond, they could not. But, the Alara of Ara, managed to escape, not due to any magic. He himself has made it very clear. This magic is not going to solve this problem. And people should stop saying, we leave it in the hands of God. Or those who are calling on the devil. Government must play its part to make this environment safe and secure for everyone.
Yes, indeed. Government must play its part to make this environment safe and secure. And that's what Nigerians have called on. In fact, last week, a coalition of civil society organizations under CISLAC had held a world press conference to actually ask the government to declare a state of emergency on insecurity in Nigeria. And part of what they cited was the fact that the government, a major responsibility of government was to secure the lives and properties of Nigeria. And unfortunately, as it stands, quoting the numbers in thousands of people who've been abducted in under 1 year, and just looking at the last few years, that we needed to ensure that we were not paying lip service, or government isn't paying lip service to securing lives and property. Beyond that, when we look at the impact of insecurity on attracting foreign investment, we've talked about this a number of times, and the signal it sends to the world. Only last week, the ambassador of Germany to Nigeria had met with the Senate president and talked about the fact, in her words, that the insecurity issue in Nigeria is worrisome. She didn't need to have told us this. We can see it. It is obvious. And so whilst people go online to say that, oh, the situation is not that bad when you compare the numbers with other people, we shouldn't demarket Nigerians. It's not a matter of demarketing Nigeria. It's actually the fact that we want the country to be better. Hence the need to call our government and security agencies and a rallying call so that people can live and go about their day's activities without the fear of being abducted or being killed. The children who were unfortunately kidnapped last week, Monday, were on their way to school. And we've noticed this with children. In Abuja, just a few weeks back, early in the year, we'd had the kidnapping of Nabiha and her sisters, whom unfortunately lost her life. Folorunsho Ariyo and her sisters, who unfortunately also lost her life. That's these two girls. Even though their siblings were later rescued, the focus on the fact that now our children, who are some of the most vulnerable in society, whom should be protected, are now seen as targets by kidnappers because it has now become a business venture where they are asking for ransom in millions of naira. We heard for the Ekiti state, there were numbers that were going up to over 100 million naira. Now, kudos to the police and security agencies who rescued these children, and said that they did that without collecting any ransom. There have been debates about the collection or the payment of ransom. And even though security agencies say, oh, it is illegal, but there's also been the argument of the fact that these are human lives in question with family members, especially in the case of children, whilst we do not advocate for the payment of ransom because it does encourage this terrible crime. The truth is, what's the other alternative? And that's why we must continue to ask and make a demand on this government to ensure that they get their security architecture right and are able to secure the lives of Nigerians living in Nigeria. Let me just mention a few things that has been said a lot of times. However, perhaps the more we emphasize it, the more it will be taken into cognizance and something would be done. A lot has been said about more recruitment into the police force. In fact, the chairman of the House Committee, the House of Representatives Committee on the Judiciary, had given this suggestion last week during their session. That number one, in his estimation, about 500,000 more young people ought to be recruited to the police force in bigger states and 100,000 in smaller states. These were the recommendations. Of course, we'll talk about where the financing would come, but when we have a critical situation on our hands, then money must have to show up some way. There have been talks about partnerships with the United States, with Germany. Only last week, the Undersecretary of State for Civilian Security, Democracy and Human Rights was in Nigeria, and she talked about how the U.S. was looking at furthering their partnership with Nigeria in the area of security. They trained some of the SIS, Special Intervention Squad of the police last week, and these are the kind of things we're looking at. Mr. Honorable Oke also talked about intelligence, investment in ensuring intelligence, a collaborative effort. Why don't the locals trust the police enough or security agencies to give intelligence? Why are they afraid sometimes, as we saw in the case of in Oyo State, where in Ibadan, during the bomb blast, the explosion, they had mentioned that, they knew the people who were perpetrating this illegality, but they didn't tell the police. That means that there's a gap somewhere. There needs to be more engagement between the security agencies and civilians. We keep talking about the kinetic and non-kinetic, but if this must happen, there must be collaborative effort, town hall meetings. Everyone must be on hand to ensure that we secure this nation called Nigeria. Finally, what we're hopeful for is that we wouldn't have more press conferences. We wouldn't have incidents like this, where whilst we're rejoicing on the surface of one, the very next minute we're having to decry another abduction or killing. That would be most unfortunate. So the onus is on the security agencies, the police now in question, to prevent these things from happening. Intelligence, work together with NIMC, especially with NIN, so that we can trace and track these kidnappers who are not faceless and who live amongst us in society. Move on to our next story. Namibia's longest-serving prime minister and third president, Hage Geingob, is dead. Geingob died at 82 in the early hours of Sunday in a hospital in the capital, Windhoek, where he was receiving treatment for cancer. Geingob had been in charge of the country since 2015, the year he announced he had survived prostate cancer. A presidency post on social media platform X did not give a cause of death, but late last month, the presidency said he had traveled to the United States for a 2-day novel treatment for cancerous cells. After being diagnosed following a regular medical checkup, he was born in 1941 and he was a prominent politician since before Namibia achieved independence from white minority-ruled South Africa in 1990. Vice President Nangolo Mumba takes the helm in Namibia, a mining hotspot with significant deposits of diamonds and the electric car battery ingredient lithium, until presidential and parliamentary elections at the end of the year. Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu has condoled with Namibia over the death of their president, Hage Geingob. President Tinubu described the deceased president as a veteran in the struggle for democracy, proponent of good governance, and advocate of economic, social, and political solidarity among African peoples. The president notes that the tragedy comes at a time when Africa needs more visionary leaders who believe in the common destiny of the continent and who can strengthen bonds across borders and spread the tendrils of cooperation across all fields of human endeavor. Oh, Dr. Bati.
Well, first, our commiserations with the people of Namibia losing President Geingob, one of the more prominent figures in the struggle for independence, for liberation, not just in Namibia, formerly known as the West African People's Organization, SWAPO region, but also in the entire region. He made his career first as an anti-apartheid activist. Having trained as a teacher, he joined the struggle against the Bantustan education system and eventually ended up in Botswana in exile, where he became a representative of the Southwest African People's Organization. And it was from there that he left for the United States. When he got to the United States, he became again a representative of the SWAPO, as it was known. But he also went to, again, to be noted, to the US on a scholarship, with which he studied at Fordham University, where he obtained a Bachelor of Arts degree and also later a Master of Arts degree. Later, President Geingob would take a PhD that was from the University of Leeds in the United Kingdom, where he wrote a PhD thesis on state formation in Namibia, focusing on democracy and governance. But in his entire political career, he will be remembered, of course, as someone who was part of the struggle. And indeed, in 1990, when SWAPO gained independence for Namibia as a country became, he was appointed the first prime minister in that country, and was prime minister for a period of about 12 years. He will later return a second time as prime minister, sometime around 2012. And then, he was also at another time the Minister for Trade and Industry for Namibia. And then, of course, he remained president of the SWAPO party from about 2017 to 2024. So this is a man who was part of the struggle, who emerged and became, part of the leadership process. And it is therefore not surprising that in the various tributes that have been issued in his honor, by President Tinubu, President Obasanjo, President Biden, the African Union, the World Health Organization, and President Ruto of Kenya. There have been references to the fact that he's a hero of democracy, he's, a liberation fighter, and, a leader of his people. In fact, the African Union says a baobab tree has fallen. The World Health Organization praises him for collaboration in the area of promoting healthcare in his country, Namibia. Now, he became president in 2014 and won the election with over 80% of the votes to show the level of his popularity. However, his first time in office was marred by allegations of corruption, of dirty deals, and all of that. So when he came back for a second term, later in 2018 or so, his second term, he scored just about 56% of the vote. But then again, his second term also has been affected by concerns about his health. He first had the brain surgery. Apart from brain surgery, he had a prostate surgery. Then he had a heart valve surgery in South Africa. So he's been having a bout of poor health. And, earlier this year, he started battling with colonoscopy, as they call it, and gastroscopy, two forms of cancer. He went to the US for medical treatment, but then returned and died there at home. Now, before his death, he had arranged a successor who will be, who is the SWAPO party chosen successor. So we may not have any serious, succession problem in Namibia. But 15 hours after his death, his vice president was immediately sworn in to complete his tenure, which ends in March 2025. So the people of Namibia are going through a season of transition, but it will appear that transition may not be as problematic, may not be in fact problematic at all, as may seem to be the case in other parts of Africa. He was married twice. He married in 1967, married in 1993, and also married in 2015. So he survived by, the wife he married in 2015 and his children. We commiserate, as I've said, with the people of Namibia, and we hope that, there will be no issues with power play in Namibia. Notably, he will be, or he was, the first person from the non-majority group in Namibia to assume the position of president. The Ovambo are the dominant ethnic, people in Namibia, but he was the first and the third president of Namibia to come from a non-Ovambo stock. But we wish the people of Namibia well as they move forward without a man who could be described correctly as one of the founding fathers of modern Namibia.
Yeah. One of the founding fathers of modern Namibia, and in other words, he's also been described as the architect of the constitution in Namibia. And before Namibia got its independence, it was colonized by the Germans. And former President Geingob was said to have been one of the freedom fighters. And so you would imagine that in the country of Namibia, some people, even though ratings and polls had showed that his popularity had begun to wane towards the end of his tenure, still felt very sad and mourned his loss quite greatly, saying that he was, champion of democracy, he was a freedom fighter, and was part of the architect of their constitution. Beyond that, looking at his physical stature, they said his statesmanship was as tall as he was physically. physically in his build, and also in terms of, on the personal side, quite jovial in his approach to leadership. Now, it's been said that the elections in Namibia are coming up in November of this year. As we've mentioned a number of times, this year is an interesting one for elections around the world. Around the same time, the United States would also be going to the polls to elect a new leader. This year as well, the United Kingdom would be electing a new leader. But with regards to Namibia, it's quite interesting because potentially, based on former President Geingob's succession plan, he had the SWAPO party had actually put as their forerunner a woman, and who might very well go on, if she wins, to become the first female president of Namibia. Her name is Netumbo Nandi Ndaitwah. And following the swearing in of the vice president, who said that not to worry, he's not going to the ballots, he's not going to be on the ballots in November, she was made vice president to President Nangolo Mbumba, who was sworn in very shortly after the announcement of the death of President Geingob. It's quite interesting because this positions the SWAPO party in a place where she's able to have even more visibility, more engagement, and more popularity with the people. So it looks like even before his death, as a visionary, as one of the titles or descriptions of the man President Geingob, he was able to see and put plans into place, and even in death, it looks like it's been followed to the letter. Our commiseration to the people of Namibia, and we hope he will rest in peace. He died, as was said, in a hospital, surrounded by his wife and children.